All right, all right. So we seen them check in the chat. We got New York City, Scarborough, Markham, Scarbs, Boston, Wuhan, um, Bear, Toronto, Scarborough, Montreal. We have Pickering, Brampton, Aurora, Toronto. Okay, okay. Estonia. So if everyone is as excited as me, I should see lots of ones dropped in the chat just now. Beautiful. Let's kick this off. Okay. So Arj and I got a little something for you guys today. We're going to be talking about choice. And as we saw in that video just before this, you can either choose to live in survival or choose to live in creativity. How are you going to make your life around you? Are you going to tense up? Are you going to restrict your possibility, your outcome, everything you can do? Or are you going to create? Are you going to live in abundance? Are you going to live in prosperity? That's your choice. So before I even go into what I'm going to be talking on my part, and before I kick it off to RJ after that, I'm just going to say one thing quickly. Bringing it back to if you guys were on my last life coaching call, I mentioned the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And there's a line in there that I really loved. And it basically said, everything in your life is your choice and your responsibility, but not everything is your fault. So that shows everything in your life is your choice. And an example would be if one day you wake up and there's a baby on your front door, is it your fault that there's a baby there? That someone came and placed a baby on your porch, on your front step? No, it's not your fault. However, is it your choice what you do next? Is it your responsibility for the child now? 100% it is. So everything is your choice, but not everything is your fault. However, a lot of your choices can also lead to fault or not. For example, if you choose to cheat on your spouse, that was a choice and it is your fault. So just keep that in mind. Understand that everything is your choice, everything is your responsibility. Some things aren't your fault, some things are. And with that in mind, we're now going to go into how choices impact your life and how to make choices that resonate well with you. So for my part, I'm just going to talk about how to clarify your goals, how to generate options and identify resources, and then how to take action once you're done that. So naturally, I mean, if we look at nature, every plant by definition will tend to grow to reach full maturity. And I don't know about you, but for me personally, I tend to believe that we are not much different from those plants in the sense that we have an inherent desire to grow. We want to expand. We want to reach a better version of ourselves. We want to be better than who we are now. And along this path, we will find crossroads requiring us to make decisions and to make choices. So sometimes while we face those choices, we feel stuck because we so badly want to make the right choice. And then from fear of making the wrong choice, we overfocus on what we may have go wrong. And we end up procrastinating our decision. Or sometimes we have hard time anticipating what could be the consequences of our choices. So sometimes we just don't know where to start and we don't change things. Drop a 2 in the chat if anyone can relate to that. All right, lots of 2s. Yeah, like choices are hard, man. Like you just feel you get stuck sometimes, and for multiple reasons. So to start, this is what I would suggest. Today we're going to be exploring the idea of making choices that support us and those in our environment. So how do we come to this type of choice as opposed to charging head down towards choices that may give us a hard time down the road, like just impulsive or acting out of that fear, acting out of that state of survival as opposed to abundance and creativity? So to explore that theme of making beneficial choices, I'm going to offer a model that I find works for me. And this model comes in 3 parts. So first, I'm going to see how I can clarify my goals and review their alignment with my values or the values of my family, for example. Number 2, I'm going to then explore options and assess my resources. And number 3, I'm going to then see how I can take action. So now I'm just going to kick it off with part 1. And I'm actually going to share my screen a couple of times just so that you guys can take a screenshot at any time. I have a lot of questions written out that'll help you dig deeper. So I'll pull that up in a second. But if you believe you're at a crossroads and you need to change something in your life, I can bet it's because you know in your guts that something just is not working well for you. Personally, I can speak through a lot of occasions in my life where I'm just sitting, I'm like, damn, something needs to move, something needs to change. And because I just feel there's a discomfort, there's something not adding up. And you can try to shove those feelings away, but if it keeps coming back to you, you can be pretty sure that'll be there until you listen and until you do something. So, with that being said, what do you do with it? How about stopping and asking yourself, asking your gut, a couple of powerful questions? Now, a powerful question is a question that will give you an insight on a situation. And now I'm just going to pull up a couple examples. Here we go. So feel free to take a screenshot of this. I thought that if I just ask these out loud, people wouldn't get through them quick enough. They wouldn't be able to write it down. So take a screenshot, write it down, whatever you need to do while I go through these questions. So for example, what is it that you want to see or experience less of in your life right now, or in the time that you are dealing with something? Or on the flip side, what is it that you want to experience more of? If you feel stuck or in a rut and keep doing the same thing again and again and again, that's the definition of insanity, repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. So how is that working for you? What might serve you better? Another question to ask yourself is, what makes your heart sing? What makes you happy? Like, what brings you joy and peace? My dad always tells me something when I make decisions. If you're fighting against your ego, or if you're dealing with it naturally, there's one question to ask to be able to tell which one. So if you're fighting with your ego and you ask this question, it'll highlight that. And if you're making a right decision, then you'll know. And the question simply is, what in this situation brings me peace? If you're coming to a conclusion because your ego is telling you so, it's not going to bring you peace. But if you are at peace with your decision, then you will move forward in creativity. So that's another one. What makes your heart sing? How can you find that peace? That's a great question right there. You can also ask, what do you want people to tell about you, to talk about you, to say about you when you die? Because that's another big one. If this is a big decision, that's a lot of gravity. Okay, what about your culture? What about your values? That should also play a massive part. And that is how people will discuss about you, talk about you when you're gone. If money was not a concern, what would your life like to look like in the future? Shout out Alan Watts for this question. He always says, if money was not an issue, what would you do? What would you desire? Because if you could do anything, there's bound to be other people interested in the same thing. Next question that I've written down is, what is your hero going to do and why? I know I wrote it wrong here, but what is their opinion? How would they proceed? Because oftentimes we can do something in perceptual positioning, which we also discussed on the last life coaching call, where you can make your board, your board of your heroes, your guides, your, I don't know, people you look up to, role models, etc. And then you can sit them down there and you can all ask questions to each and every one of them and they'll all have their input to give to you. You can ask, what would you like specifically that you don't have right now? Or what is missing in your life? If you had a magic wand, what is the smallest change you would do that would bring you the greatest improvement to your situation? So remember, small things make big differences. And I know ourselves in Trade House, we always say, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So if you do a little bit, something changes. Suddenly, you have a new opportunity, a new door of creativity has been opened. And lastly, the last question that I had written down for this part is, when you reach your goal, what will you see, feel, and hear? What does your goal look like And how do you know you've reached it? Now, this is huge because this ties in very much with visualization and manifesting. So, if you can see the outcome in a sense after asking all these other questions first and see where you stand with your choices, what the options are, and sit in them and feel them and see them and hear them, etc., then you'll know where you stand. You'll go, damn, you know what? This doesn't feel good. I don't want to manifest that for myself. So I'm going to focus on this one. And you can move forward in creativity then. So I'm just going to stop this share for now. Actually, I'll leave it up in case people are still following that, writing down those questions while I move on. So oftentimes we talk about the desire to make the right choice. And then if we don't, we judge ourselves and beat ourselves up. That's why I believe it's more productive and beneficial to recognize that we can only make the choices that serve us well or not, as opposed to right and wrong. If at any given time we made a choice that didn't serve us well, we can always choose again and do better. My aunt actually gave me some advice, like I think I was like 8 years old. She said, you should never really regret anything in your life because at the time that you made that decision, you thought it was the right thing to do. And I was like, you know what? That's actually facts. Like, otherwise, you wouldn't do it. But then, if it didn't serve you, you can always go choose again and do better. So, by using like those powerful questions, we can dig into what it is exactly that we want and what is our goal. If it is too difficult to do alone, try asking a friend to ask you these questions, like print them out, get someone there, because I know conversation often helps as well, instead of just living in your mind. So then if they're helping you, it's not in the interest of getting you to complain about the situation, but in the interest of covering what it is you want less of or what you want more of. Once you see more clearly what you are after or your goal, you can ask yourself, how is this goal going to fit with my values and how will I be remembered by it? Nobody lives in total isolation. I mean, even with COVID, like we're still on these calls right now. We still got a bunch of people packing these out. We're constantly communicating in group chats, talking to friends. Nobody's in isolation. We're all part of an environment. Whether you need to take into account family members, friends, your workplace, your coworkers, a sports team, whatever it is, our decisions need to take others into consideration and align with our values, their values, etc., if we want them to sit well with us on the long term. So you may think now, well, how do we do this? Again, here are some specific questions that I wrote up. So I'm going to share the next one that helps you making those decisions. So I'm going to put up a new share. Boom. So here are some questions that you can ask yourself still in part one, but to further that. So what if I do this, in brackets, whatever the choice is, now that, as we saw before, you've sat with it, you felt it, you've seen it, you've heard it, you know the outcome, you've visualized it. How does this, or if I do this, how will this align with what I stand for? Or if I choose this, option A or option B that you've already visualized, how will this impact the people I'm close to? Is it something I can live with down the road? Or again, will the result of my decisions or choice bring me peace, as I before mentioned? Or will it keep me awake at night? If it brings you peace, typically it is the right answer, it is the right choice to make. How important is it for me on a scale of 1 to 10 to reach this goal? How important is it that I do something about this situation on a scale from 1 to 10? Now, if your answer to the last question or last two questions is a low number, maybe it's not even a priority for you to change right now or anytime soon. The higher the number on a scale of 1 to 10 means the greatest your motivation will now have to be, and the easiest for you it'll then be to take action, which is part 3 of what we're going to do and look at. So let's imagine that after asking yourself these powerful questions, it helped clarify your goal. You are now ready to do something about it and actually take action to reach your goal. But before getting into the action, it might be a good idea to explore your options. The means you choose to reach your goal will facilitate or hamper your journey. Therefore, it is important to take a step back and a second to explore the various options. So part 2 now is to generate options and identify resources. So if you can think about your options on your own, you can also gather information, talk to people who have walked the path or similar path and ask them what worked for them and how differently they would proceed if they had to do it again. That's one of the amazing things I find about our educational system here at Trade House. In university, you have your professor and they're in front of you, they're teaching you, they're giving you a lecture, but then do you really have access to them, or are you going to talk to a TA who's basically just another student? Whereas here, right now on our call, we have a Chairman 10, we have RJ, like we have direct access to these people. So for me, that's a great way to gather information, assess options, for example, in this journey, and talk to people who've walked a path similar or done before me what I'm looking to do. So in addition, trying to see options from a different perspective is a great thing, as it'll force your brain to explore a path it might not normally go. So for instance, you could ask yourself, once again, what options would my hero see in this situation? What path would the person I admire choose in this situation? And if you have a direct link to them, you can literally ask that, okay, what would you choose here? What do you see here? How would you react? What is the path of least resistance? And does it make sense? Now, this question is heard so much. Like I hear it all the time with my life coach, with my mom, who's a life coach. Like, what is the path of least resistance? Can I have things come to me along this path of least resistance? Can the universe guide me to this? So, although often you can program that to happen, if you do feel stuck, you can then ask yourself consciously, what is the path of least resistance? You could also ask yourself, who else could give me an insight and how would I reach out to them? Or how can I reach what I want through their insight and through their help? Lastly, once again, if time and money were no concern, which option would I choose? Because once again, that more times than not is actually what makes you happy, what makes your heart sing, what is your drive, your goal, your motivation. So you can also create a mind map and write down on a piece of paper with no judgment all your ideas or options that come to you to reach your goal. Setting your options visually on paper might help you sort out which are the best options for you. Honestly, I got too much going on in my mind when I have to make these big decisions, and that is truly something amazing. You guys can see behind me there, I actually just have a cork board, literally, that's my entire wall. And every time I need to think of something, I just write down a piece of paper, pin it on the wall to make it easy for me to then see, so it's not in my mind. And as you explore your options, it is equally important to make the list of your resources or your allies that you can count on to help you achieve your goal. As part of the resources, we count your skills and any other thing that could help you. Allies could be people you have met in your life and that you trust. It could also be people you haven't met but you admire for their judgment, character, and resources given in situations you've dealt with or deal with. For that example being, once again, going back to the example I'd taken from Think and Grow Rich. You can make your own board, have your own meetings. In my board, I have people I've never met, but I know their character. I've seen them. I've heard how they speak. I can understand their decisions. And so they help me with my decisions when I need that in turn. So lastly, here are a couple questions that you can ask your allies or your resources. So you can say, who can help me and who's on my side? That's the first thing, because then you can approach them, you can move forward with them, you can ask help. Or as I said, you can put them in a situation, if you don't know them personally, where you can still see what they would look at and how they would approach a situation. You can ask yourself, Was I previously in a similar situation, and what resources did I use? Because oftentimes, just like Joe Dispenza said in the video, when you're in fight or flight, when you're in that survival mode, you shut down, you focus on what's right in front of you, as opposed to thinking, oh, do you know what? I've kind of been through something similar before. Or, hey, maybe my buddy Joe did this. Like, he was telling me about something similar. So try and broaden that horizon, see if you were in a similar situation, what did you use? What did your others use, your other friends? You can say, can I apply the same type of resources to this situation? In brackets, I wrote, this is a way to recycle your skills, your resilience, and your ability to analyze the situation. We are always more resourceful than what we want to give ourselves credit for, and that's facts. Now, lastly, the last bullet point I had here is just like, once again, what we talked about in our last call, perceptual positions. So if you're an eagle and you could fly over the situation, what would you see that you being stuck down on the ground didn't see? Okay, what are your resources? What's the situation look like, etc. And if you need help with this, you can actually check out the last life coaching video that I posted. It'll be in part 1 on YouTube. And I go through all perceptual positions, and you can literally climb on a chair and look down at the floor and the situation there. And you can ask yourself, what do you see from above that you didn't see when you're actually in the middle of the situation? So finally, if you still feel you need more resources that you do not have within yourself or in your surroundings, you can remember to ask, I need and I wonder if someone knows where I could get help. So even if it's not someone that can directly help you, maybe they will know someone else who can. So you can use your community, you can use your resources and network. You never know how the universe might answer. So you have to stay open and observe how and where the answers will come from. Sometimes that is literally the path of least resistance. It's just waiting for the universe to provide you with something. So lastly, for my part 3, we have take action. And so far in our session on how to make choices that can support us, we have covered the importance of clarifying our goals while verifying that they align with our values and the values of our environment. We've also covered the importance of generating options and identifying the resources we can count on. Now we're really ready to actually take action and shape the choice that we want. So, what is the best course of action? Are there different steps to take? Which ones do you envision? When can you start, and when would you like to finish? Now, personally, I think the best time to start is now. There's always, like, you have to act immediately. But when or if you have doubt along the way, just imagine how nice it will be when you reach your goal. Remind yourself that, visualize and manifest it. You should have a clear idea of what you want your end result to look like and feel like. Remember, if you don't know what the end result looks like or feels like, how can you expect to know when you've reached it? To be honest, that's a great question to ask yourself. If you haven't envisioned what it is, then you might just be spending your whole life continuing with no means, no goal, no purpose. So visualize what you want, what you need, so you know when you get there, you've hit the promised land that you set for yourself. If you feel at any point along the journey that the effort is too great, reassociate yourself with the feeling of having reached your goal. If it still feels important enough, this feeling will support your efforts and motivate you to continue and take steps moving forward. Write down your action plan with dates for your milestones. Once again, we have like, what's your goal for this week? What's your goal for a month, 1 year, 5 years? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Everyone always asks that. That's actually an important question. Write it down. Set your action plan and when you intend to hit goals, when you intend to hit milestones along the way. If you experience some delays, don't blame yourself because life happens. Just reassess instead with where you're at. And if something else needs to be done, or if you need to simply be patient because things are out of your control, then sit with that and see where you go from there. Once again, you can repeat this entire process. Success rarely happens in a straight line. I know you guys probably follow a bunch of trading pages. I see them all the time. It says the success of a trader. What people think, whoop, up the chart. Never like that. You're going circles. You're going up, down, sideways, backwards. It's never in a straight line. And sometimes you'll make a choice that will support you only so far. And once you hit that point, you'll need to reassess the situation before taking a different turn. And yet, when you look back, you'll see that every step was important and led you to be the person you are now. Nothing was lost, and all the dots are in fact connected. So keep the faith, keep making your choices, how they serve you, because nothing is right or wrong, it's just how it serves you, and never blame yourself if you took the wrong turn. But just reassess, make the new choice, because life is full of possibilities at all time. So in conclusion, life requires us to make decisions on a daily basis. Some decisions are the result of small choices, and some are the result of huge choices that impact our life greatly. So, what is important is to be aware that our choices can be supportive or not. They can serve us or not. And we have the capacity to choose again at any time. Choices need to be anchored in our values. And if we want to live a fulfilled life where our friends and family count, then this is important. To make choices that support us, we need to keep an eye on what it is that we really want, aka our goals. Then we need to explore all our options and use the resources available from within us and within our communities. Finally, we need to take action following a well-defined action plan. There is always an abundance of resources in the world, but we need to move and grab them to achieve our goals. Nothing's ever stationary. Life is always moving. Life is always in action, and therefore your goals need action as well. My mom often says this with wisdom, but God created enough seeds for all the birds to be fed, but the birds have to find the seeds. God doesn't put seeds in the bird's mouth. He doesn't put it in the bird's beak. So let's make our choices and let's take action to implement them. There's enough opportunity for you. It's not going to be given to you. You have to go looking for it. So that concludes my part of this call. I thought that having RJ on this call would be perfect for this because this guy's a huge inspiration for me with the choices he's made, the way he's turned his life, lived it, etc. Now he has his little girl, his family, everything. Chairman 10, crazy trader that I keep learning from on the daily. So without further ado, RJ, it'd be a pleasure for you to take this away and talk about choices and how they impact your life and what your expectancy is on all that.